The incident is being coined an environmental disaster and a matter of life and death for almost 300 individuals aboard the large deep-sea drilling platform. It went down days ago, and only now are we beginning to learn details regarding the oil rig collapse and what may have caused such a devastating accident.
So, 10 Cloverfield Lane, a sequel to the original, but not a direct one. It seems to take place in the same universe, but the story involves completely different characters. With this video, I'm going to explain where I believe this movie takes place and how the monsters we see in it connect to the original. Just before we go on to it, I do want to warn you about spoilers for 10 Cloverfield Lane and the first movie. If you want to be caught up to speed on what I've discussed so far, then go check out my older videos on the first movie. Or don't, whatever, doesn't really matter. I have warned you anyway, so let's get on to it. During this movie, a woman named Michelle wakes up after a car accident in a mysterious bunker with two men. One called Howard and the other called Emmett. Howard says that there's been an attack on the outside world and that the air is contaminated, so she can't leave. But he tells her she's safe inside his bunker. However, we find out Howard's been lying to her, and it turns out Howard was the one that kidnapped her and crashed her car at the very beginning of the movie. The reason he did this was because he once had a daughter called Megan, but a few years ago she was taken away from him by his wife. And since then, he's gone insane and started kidnapping girls, dressing them up like his daughter, and hiding them in his doomsday bunker, and eventually killing them if they refuse to do what he says. We know this because in the movie we find an earring with blood on it that belonged to a girl who went missing 2 years prior to Michelle waking up in the bunker. They find a picture with the girl and Howard sitting next to each other in the bunker. She's also wearing the same shirt that Howard gave Michelle at the start of the movie as well. When Howard showed Michelle this picture at first, he lied to her saying that it was his daughter Megan. But after Emmett saw it, he said that it was a girl who went missing 2 years prior. Obviously, Michelle figures this all out before it's too late and escapes while killing Howard in the process. She gets outside the bunker to find out the air isn't actually contaminated, but the world has been taken over by aliens, just like Howard predicted at the beginning of the movie. A pretty interesting story, and it stands well on its own in my opinion. But how exactly does this connect to the other Cloverfield story? Well, first of all, we need to create the timeline for the movie and its ARG, so we can see where each one takes place during the Cloverfield universe. From my previous two videos, we know May 23rd, 2008 is where the first movie Cloverfield takes place, but where does 10 Cloverfield Lane fit? This movie actually takes place sometime in 2016, almost 8 years after the first movie. The first piece of evidence that's presented to us is from the website Tagarato. Thanks to the 10 Cloverfield ARG, we've been given 3 different Employee of the Month pages. One for January 2016, one for February 2016, and the other for March 2016. Each page has 5 different Employees of the Month for Tagarato and their subsidiary companies like Bold Futura. Speaking of Bold Futura, their Employee of the Month for February is none other than Howard Stambler, the guy who owns the bunker in the movie. Since this is the Employee of the Month for February, this means Howard must have been working for Bold Futura during January 2016 to have been given the award at the start of February. However, by the end of the movie, he's kind of dead, so the events in the movie can't take place before January 2016. It has to have been sometime after. So you're probably wondering, did it happen during February then? Actually, February is where the 10 Cloverfield Lane ARG takes place. During February 2016, Howard Stambler created a secret website to try and get in contact with his daughter Megan behind his wife's back. You can find this website by searching radioman70.com. Radioman70 is what you can see on Howard's shirt on the Employee of the Month page. This URL takes you to a site called Fun and Pretty Things. The site is surrounded by pictures of things his daughter Megan loves, including a picture of the scene from the movie Pretty in Pink, which is Megan's favorite movie.
So you watching 16 Candles?
Pretty in Pink. It was one of Megan's favorite movies.
This picture you can click on and then it asks for a passphrase. The passphrase is, "Do you want to talk?" which is actually a phrase from this particular scene in Pretty in Pink as we see it on the computer. It then takes you to a bunch of secret messages from Howard trying to get in contact with his daughter. During these messages, Howard is trying to warn Megan that the end of the world is coming and she needs to come home. Also, throughout these messages, we find out a bit more about Howard's history and why why he became who he is today. From these messages, Howard says he used to work in the Navy, and one of his biggest missions was called Seasat. According to Howard, we were supposed to be tracking Soviet spy satellites, but what we found up there was much bigger. So they cancelled the project and made up a story to explain why. End quote. The part that's most fascinating about this statement is that Seasat was an actual satellite that existed and was launched on 27th of June 1978. It lasted for 106 days in orbit until a massive short circuit ended the mission. Although that's what we've been told, there are actual conspiracy theories surrounding this mission of Seasat and why some people believe it was shut down. Even though the Navy had shut down Howard's mission, Howard and his friends couldn't let go what they had seen. In this same message, Howard continues with this: "We assembled so much evidence and tried to get the commanders to listen, but they didn't want to hear any of it. They shut us down and they accused my mentor of spying for the Soviets. They sent him to jail for 365 years, and they made it clear that they would not hesitate to do the same to me if I didn't stop asking questions." End quote. Howard continues to say he left the Navy shortly after, but he never stopped looking. From this statement and the previous one, we now know that the Navy is keeping something secret and doesn't want the public to know about it. Why is that important? At first I didn't think it was, until someone pointed out in the comments the North Atlantic Ocean is the most heavily monitored part of the world's seas since World War II. Meaning if there was something gigantic in the North Atlantic Ocean, the Navy would be one of the first to know about it. If you're still not sure what I'm getting at, the North Atlantic Ocean is where Chua Station and the original Cloverfield monster can be located, from the first movie and its ARG. This proves to me that the Navy already knew something about the aliens and possibly the Cloverfield monster before it even attacked New York City. However, that's all we find out about the Navy's involvement, as this second movie focuses more around Howard and his downfall. Howard left the Navy but obviously became obsessed with conspiracy theories ever since he found out the Navy had been lying to the public. As he said in his last message, he never stopped looking. Howard then joined Tagarato in 2009, as according to his Employee of the Month page, it says he will be celebrating his 7-year anniversary in the fall. Since this takes place in 2016, 7 years from the fall, which is autumn if you're from the UK, it means he joined Tagarato in 2009, a whole year after the monster attack in 2008. The fact that he joined Tagarato a year after that incident gives me the impression that he was researching about Tagarato before he joined. Since the monster came from the Atlantic Ocean a few months after the mysterious Chua Station incident, I think Howard knew there was a connection between the two, and since he is obsessed with conspiracy theories just like Emmett says in the movie,
You know, Howard's like a black belt in conspiracy theory.
Howard began researching Tagarato to see what he could find out about the company, before eventually joining their subsidiary company, Bold Futura, in 2009. As time went on, he must have realized he can't do it alone, so he brought in one of his old members from the mission Seasat. His name, Nikolai Roza. I apologize if I butchered that name. Roza is actually the Employee of the Month for Bold Futura for the March 2016 page. How do we know they're friends of sorts? Because in the description, the first line tells us that he used to work in the Navy, just like Howard. And on Howard's secret website, the last ever message was posted by someone called NR, which would be the initials of Roza. During this last message, he talks about how they've been crossing the line of friends and enemies for years. Also, in Roza's bio, it talks about a project he's been working on that earned him Employee of the Month, which is interesting because in his secret message, he tells us that time is of the essence, while also linking us an audio file with the words, "You know the steps." When you click on the link, at first it seems to be just a piece of music, but then about halfway through, a strange noise can be heard. It turns out this file is encoded with a HAM radio technique called SSTV. When you decode the strange noise, it actually gives you an image, but we'll come back to that in a second. Over the years while working at Tagarato, Howard's paranoia eventually got the better of him. It became so bad that his wife no longer knew who he was anymore, as she was terrified of him, and she was worried that he was going to do something to his daughter, so she left him and took his daughter with her. We know this because one of the messages on Howard's website is from his wife, telling us this story. These secret messages from Howard occurred during February 2016. We know this because Howard began linking us to articles that had been posted during February 2016. We can assume 10 Cloverfield Lane takes place straight after these messages because Howard talks about how they don't have long left, and even the final message from Roza says time is of the essence. So 10 Cloverfield Lane has to have taken place sometime either at the end of February 2016 or at the start of March 2016. However, Tagrato managed to announce their Employee of the Month for March 2016 before the world fell under attack, so we can assume it has to have taken place near the beginning of March. The final clue that narrows it down is on Michelle's iPhone when she first wakes up in the bunker. If we pay close attention to her phone's screen, you can see on her calendar app the date on it says it's the 7th, and it's on a Monday. If we take a look at the calendar for March 2016, the 7th of March is in fact on a Monday. If there's one thing we've learned, it's that J.J. Abrams likes to hide clues within his movies, like the Slusho sign at the beginning of the movie, or when Michelle places her hand on the Bold Futura letter after crawling through a vent in Howard's bunker. So I believe that it's safe to assume the sequel for Cloverfield does begin on the 7th of March 2016. Although we don't know how long exactly they're down there for, but at least we can pinpoint what month and date the aliens supposedly invaded our planet. So now it raises the biggest question as to why these aliens are here, and do they connect to the original Cloverfield monster? I personally believe they do. For example, let's go back to the last message on the secret website that was written by NR. He sent an audio file that can be decoded into an image. This image in particular seems to be taken from a satellite in space. In this image, we can see some sort of black unidentified object floating around. This actually reminds most people of another black unidentified object floating in space that is actually a real conspiracy theory, known as the Black Knight satellite. And that's no stretch to say it is, considering the whole 10 Cloverfield Lane seems to be revolving around conspiracy theories. Since they're using a lot of real-life events and real conspiracy theories, it's not that far-fetched to connect this image with the Black Knight satellite, especially with this movie being about aliens. So for those who don't know about this conspiracy theory, the Black Knight satellite is theorized to be a satellite from alien technology and has been orbiting Earth for over 13,000 years. No one knows why it's here or what it's monitoring, but there have been many reports of this object floating around our planet. So how exactly does this connect both movies? Well, the most interesting thing to note is that people say that the Black Knight satellite has been orbiting Earth for over 13,000 years. Remember the quote I used from J.J. Abrams in my very first Cloverfield video when he was describing the giant monster and where it came from? Here's a reminder. He's a baby. He's brand new, he's confused, disoriented, and irritable. And he's been down there in the water for thousands and thousands of years. End quote. Pretty interesting that these two things have been supposedly around our planet for thousands of years. These aliens have been monitoring something on our planet with the Black Knight satellite, and I fully believe it was the Cloverfield monster, as, like J.J. Abrams states, it's only a baby. So where are its parents? They're watching it from another planet, using the Black Knight satellite to keep an eye on it. Think of it as like a giant alien baby monitor. So if they've been monitoring their baby all this time and then they find out we killed it after it attacked New York, they're not going to be too happy, to say the least. Maybe they'll even come down to Earth and invade our planet because of it. Now, I know a lot of you will be unhappy to hear that the Cloverfield monster from New York is dead, but the next piece of evidence I promise you will make it all better, as the Cloverfield monster wasn't the only one they were monitoring. This next piece of information actually comes from a Japanese manga created by J.J. Abrams himself. It's called Cloverfield Kishin. Oh, also, a manga is similar to a comic for anyone who doesn't know. During this manga, the Cloverfield monster attacks a city. We assume New York, could be Japan, it isn't really clear. But this time we see the monster eventually killed, sorta, and sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Now the story itself has not been confirmed to be canon, and I don't think it ever will be. But while I don't think the story was canon, it was still written by J.J. Abrams, and I do believe it was created to help us put together this giant puzzle. At the end of the manga, when the monster sinks to the bottom of the ocean, it lands on an unhatched egg. a similar size to itself. But it's also surrounded by even more eggs. I don't think this manga was created to be a sequel or a prequel to Cloverfield. I think it was there to give us a little more information about the monster's existence. And just by this final shot, it tells us there's more Cloverfield monsters hiding under the sea, unhatched. And if that's the case, then that brings me to the conclusion that the aliens we see in 10 Cloverfield Lane actually came to Earth thousands of years ago. They then planted their eggs beneath the ocean and then began monitoring them with the Black Knight satellite ever since. However, one of the Cloverfield monsters must have hatched early but somehow became dormant for another 1,000 years or so, but I don't think we've been told how exactly that happened yet. Skip ahead to Tagarato discovering the seabed nectar, which I personally believe that came from the eggs underneath the ocean, but Tagarato might have been unaware they were eggs at the time. They then put this secret ingredient in their drink Slusho and sell it to millions. Eventually in 2007, Tagarato discovered the dormant Cloverfield monster under the sea and built Chua Station directly above it to examine it. December 27th, 2007, the monster is disturbed, wakes up and destroys Chua Station. Then, May 23rd, 2008, the monster makes its way to New York City and starts destroying it as it's confused and disoriented. The military eventually kill it, according to J.J. Abrams himself. The aliens find out through their satellite that we killed one of their children, so they set off to Earth in a rage. 8 years later, the aliens actually arrive and start invading. You might think that 8 years is a long time, but keep in mind these aliens have been living for thousands of years, so 8 years is probably like a 5-minute drive. Now it's a question on whether or not humans can actually survive the attack from these aliens. Hopefully we'll get more movies in future to give us more answers. God Particle has been confirmed to be the third Cloverfield movie and it's set in space, so hopefully the third movie is going to give us more information about these aliens, with it being, you know, in space. I feel there are 4 movies that could happen before they tie the Cloverfield universe together. Each movie seems to focus around one of Tagarato's subsidiary companies. The first one was about Slusho, as the main character Rob was given a job as vice president in marketing according to his MySpace post that doesn't really exist anymore. This relates to the movie because Slusho's secret ingredient, seabed nectar, is believed to be the monster's blood, or at least part of the monster. I'm not going to get into that now, this movie is long enough, so I'll just leave some links in the description if you want to read about that seabed nectar being a part of the monster. The second movie was Bold Futura, as Howard used to work for that company, and it relates to the movie as it involves satellites picking up alien signals. I feel the third movie will be connected to one of the other 2 subsidiary companies of Tagarato. In my opinion, it's most likely going to be Yoshida's medical research. Then the 4th movie will be about the last subsidiary company, then the 5th movie would be about Tagarato as a whole, and possibly bringing the characters back from previous movies. I don't know if they'll actually go that route, it's honestly unclear, because J.J. Abrams and the directors of the movies tend to contradict one another when speaking public about it. So it can be hard to put pieces together when stuff like that is constantly happening. But this is the most plausible theory and prediction I could think of, and I'm pretty happy with it. Could be completely wrong, but I don't really care, I like it. And hey, maybe you do too. Thanks guys for watching, feel free to leave a like and sub to the channel if you want to see more, or you could follow me on Twitter if you want, you know, and I'll try and update on the God Particle stuff, you know, the third Cloverfield movie or whatever it's gonna be called. Yeah, thank you for all your support, really means a lot. And let's move on to a shout out now that I've done all that stuff. Yeah, this one's gonna be for a guy called Weezer HD. Well, he's obviously not gonna be actually called that, but that's his channel name. And he made me this awesome banner that you can see in the background. He made my old one as well, so he's added a bit more to it, and I really like it. I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, go check this guy out. He makes some pretty cool videos. So thank you guys, really means a lot. And I really appreciate the support. I've realized my channel's kind of just bursted out of nowhere in subscribers over the Christmas period. I assume it's just the Christmas period. I can only assume that's what it is. Anyway guys, thank you for all your support. I'm gonna try and get back to uploading weekly. I don't know if that'll actually happen. We will soon see, won't we? So thank you for watching this far and listening to me babble, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you guys for watching. Stay safe and don't pull a Pickard.